Here we are looking at a satellite view of someplace on the planet. It's difficult for any person to look at this and know from looking at it where it's located. Almost impossible. But we have these different tools with this. Basically comes from the Google Maps, including the road map. Well, here's see the red, this red pin tag. You can mouse over it and it will show you where it's located. And it's a little town called Warwick, Massachusetts. Not Warwick, Rhode Island, not any other Warwick that people may have heard of, but a little town in Massachusetts that no one's ever heard of, even people who lived in Massachusetts their whole life. Now I will show you the map to show you why nobody's ever heard of this place. Here it is. It's pretty directly north of the Quabbin Reservoir, right in the middle of the state. Right in the middle of the state. Massachusetts does pretty much have two separate, it's like, it's like it could be separated into eastern Massachusetts and western Massachusetts, and they're as distinct as North Carolina from South Carolina, or North Dakota from South Dakota, or Virginia from West Virginia. Massachusetts, it's kind of like Virginia before they separated into Virginia and West Virginia, and the western part of Massachusetts is very much like Western Virginia as far as the eastern part of Massachusetts is concerned. It's like a different place. So here's right on the Mason-Dixon line between eastern and western Massachusetts. This little town no one's ever heard of, Warwick, Massachusetts. Over below it you can see Orange and Athol, which people have heard of. There's the Quabbin Reservoir, which gives us our water. To the right you've got Winchendon, Ashburnham, Gardner, people have heard of a bit. And to the right off the map, which I'll show you, you've got Fitchburg, Leominster, and you come in closer into Boston, you'll see Route 190, 290. Here's Concord, Massachusetts. Here you're coming into Boston. Now here's Boston, Cambridge, going out from there. Route 2, you've got Lexington, you've got Concord, you've got West Concord. You've got the birthplace of Thoreau right around here in West Concord, or right between Concord and West Concord. Walden Pond is out there. Down here you got Worcester, is like the second biggest town in Massachusetts. And then past Worcester, you've got this whole central rural area between Worcester and the Quabbin Reservoir. Nice country area here. Small towns, farming communities. And Barre over here, let me zoom in. There we go. Barre, Massachusetts, is where the Massachusetts Audubon Society used to have its summer camp, nature summer camp, right about here. It was called Camp Wildwood. Right in here. Here's the center of Barre, a nice little, small little old town with a village green. And just right outside of it was Wildwood, and a place called Cook's Canyon. And it's still owned, I believe, by the Audubon Society, but no longer is it a nature camp. It was a nature camp beginning around 1954. The last time I went there was 1970. I went there from 1970 to 1975. Let's show it from the aerial view, a satellite view, and zoom in. So here's this whole little wooded area that was Cook's Canyon, the Audubon Societies, Cook's Canyon, and Camp Wildwood. And some of my really good memories are from being there in the summer, 2 weeks at a time, from 1970 to 1975. So I have good memories of this area of Barre. Now, we move the map out. It's not too far from Barre, so there's Barre, and here's the Quabbin Reservoir, which we used to go on little day trips to. This used to be old towns, old New England towns in Massachusetts, until Boston ran out of fresh drinking water, and so they came up with this plan about 100 years ago. They actually came up with the plan just before the turn of the century, of the 1900, to dam up this river, the Swift River that ran through the middle of Massachusetts. And that's what they ended up doing. They dammed up the Swift River, creating this artificial large body of water, but it's not a body of natural water. It's a natural area. It's a natural area, but it's not a natural body of water. It was a river, a little smaller river that got dammed up. Here you can see on here Mount Zion Island and Laveau Island. These weren't islands, these were hills. There were 5 towns here on the Swift River that were destroyed by the creation of this Quabbin Reservoir. 5 historic New England towns that had been there for 200 or 300 years. 5 towns that were destroyed. A number of the houses were picked up and moved to places like New Salem here. Had a certain number of residents of the Quabbin Reservoir that chose to move there. It was taken by eminent domain. So the state comes in and says, we need this more than you do, and we'll pay you market value, more or less, probably less. And you got no choice. You're evicted. If you don't leave, police will come in and take you by force, and your house will be confiscated. No matter what you do, resistance is futile. There's nothing you can do about it. Take the money we throw at. Take the cash that we throw at you, and get the hell out of here. We don't want to ever see you again. We need your land for drinking water. 5 towns were destroyed here. Let's see, one of them was called Dana. I think one of them was called New Salem, and there were 3 others. You can research Quabbin Reservoir and the history of that. So then this artificial body of water was created. These artificial islands were created. Mount Zion was probably called Mount Zion, but it wasn't an island. It was a hilltop. People probably went skiing there. Now it's a nature reserve, and for the most part, you're not allowed to go there. That's not helping. This satellite isn't helping much. Some of these satellite pictures are so dark. I don't know why that is, when they were taking or what. Eventually they'll be able to lighten them up. But there's a third option on here. First of all, let me point out, if you can see this, I think you can. I've got aerial. I've got road here, which just shows the road map. If I click there, next to it, aerial, which shows the satellite. Go back and forth. I can show this. I can show that. Or I've got the labels. So I'm on satellite, but I can put labels, so it makes it a hybrid. So now it's labeled what things are, and that's simpler to switch back from the map mode into the satellite mode with the labels on them. Much easier to see what you're looking at here. And then there's the bird's eye view here. Let's look at this. This will zoom in much closer. Bird's eye view really zooms in. And I've only got 2 choices. One zoom in and one zoom out. So this is on the out. It shows this is 80 yards. I've got zoom in, so it's closer. You can see an individual tree on this. From this view, you can see individual trees. That's how sharp, that's how incredible this satellite technology is. You can see individual trees, and then I'm capable of zooming out 1 step. So that's it. As far as the bird's eye view, here we go. As you move, you can see some. Here's a little pond in the middle here. Trees. It's all just nature around here because it's the reservoir. So now I'm going to show you the satellite view or the road map. I'll move it to the road map and see if we can see the little pond. Zoom in. Okay, well it would appear that little pond is actually on that island. So are we actually looking at Mount Zion Island here? Zoom out. I'm going to move it and see if we are. It looks... Ugh, I hate when this happens. You pull it... No, okay, yeah, we're on the island. This is Mount Zion Island, apparently. Let me label it. Nothing labeling there. This looks like Mount Zion Island. So again, I'm going to go on the map view. Zoom out a bit. Yeah, so we were actually looking straight onto, from the satellite, Mount Zion Island there. Now let's look at it from the satellite photography of Mount Zion Island. And it's too dark, but if we put labels on it, it will show that's Mount Zion Island. There we go. So we got to label it. We zoom in a bit, see how it looks. There's little Carrick Island here. Let's zoom in on Carrick Island. Zoom in. Quabbin Reservoir, it's labeled. So that's the advantage of clicking on labels. You get the hybrid, this Carrick. We're looking directly onto this little island in the Quabbin Reservoir, zooming in so closely that we can see individual trees. Although it is darkish and may be hard for you to see on this video, it's possible to see this from the computer here. It's a little darkish, but you can see individual trees, and it's completely, there's no buildings on this. It's a nature reserve, and it shows you how big it is. It's about let's see, well, 30 yards is from about here. From here to here is about 30 yards. 30 yards, so that's about 100 feet. So this is 100 feet, and let's see how many. Let's zoom it out again. 7 yards. So this little island is only about 300 feet across. Apparently, is a little more than 300 feet across, and maybe 500 feet from north to south. And it's uninhabited. It's in the natural water reservoir, and there's like eagles live there or something. That's interesting. So let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. You see a little view of that island. Let's show it on the road map. There's that little thing. Now we'll zoom it out again. There, you see how small that island is next to Mount Zion Island. Zoom out and see with the map and with the satellite, you can keep zooming out until you get way out and see the whole planet at once. This is incredible, this technology, this satellite stuff. Generally good. Occasionally you can have disturbing thoughts about how it can be used and why it was created, but it can be incredible just the fact that we do have access to it, at least. This technology could have been created and we never have access to it. Okay, now up to the right here you see the town of Petersham has a state forest called Harvard Forest here in Petersham. And there's a little plot of land of 2 acres right up in this corner here, right bordering on this forest. 2 acres selling for $18,000 for the 2 acres, and that's $9,000 an acre, and that's a little bit expensive compared to some other plots of land around, although it's nothing compared to anything anywhere between Boston and Worcester. But as you go west of Worcester, you can find land that's a little less than $9,000 an acre. You can find some that's maybe $5,000 or $4,000 if you're lucky. But this is 2 acres bordering, situated right on the edge of this state forest here, located right here. You can see there's a lake there, little lake there. So if you were to buy these 2 acres right around here, you'd have all this land that's natural, that's not going to be getting development projects on it, presumably. It's all going to remain in nature reserve. So the fact that you only have 2 acres to your own personal use it's not the entire story, because then you're bordering on all this land that you can, take walks through and feel that you have all this natural space, and you're not crammed in as you are in most places, certainly in Boston, certainly anywhere but almost anywhere between Boston and Worcester. Let's take a look at what this looks like from the satellite picture. Alright, it is too dark. On these satellite pictures, the one thing you can complain about is that they're a bit too dark. But on this real estate view, you have the bird's eye view, and let's click that. Oh, first let's click labels. Now we get labels. Now we can see the streets labeled and get a better idea of where things are. Here it is. It says Harvard Forest right there. Oh, I lose the label. There it is. The label doesn't get larger when you zoom in. All right. Now let's take a look here from where we were. I'm going to look at the map again. Okay, that's where we are. Let's take a look from the bird's eye view of this here. Now it's a little easier to get the lighting is much better. You can zoom in and you can see individual trees, for goodness sake. Here's houses. There's a house. The house has a little pond here. There's like either another little house or a garage or a barn. Here's other houses here. Maybe a house and a barn here. So it's nice farm area, nice houses, and there's 2 acres for sale right about at this intersection here. Well, here's a house, but right somewhere around this intersection of, I'm going to label it again, there we go, Turnpike Road intersects with New Athol Road, and that looks like snow in the middle, a little bit of snow in the trees. So somewhere, whether it's right here in the center intersection, or whether it's off to the left here, it's probably right here, because the property description said it has a small pond, it abuts a small pond, and so it could well be this is the pond and these are the 2 acres over here. 2 acres would be just about like that, I think. So you could buy this little land, you could set up your tent, and you own it. You could probably drive your camper, your motor home, and park it on here, and you own the land, and that land is bordering on this state forest land, which isn't going to be developed anytime soon, if ever, hopefully. So anytime you want to go out for a walk in nature, again, it doesn't specify whether, until you contact them, whether the land is here or here. It's probably right over here by this little pond. And you just walk out your door, across the street, and you're in this fairly large state forest, which label it. Yeah. Give it the map. It's easier to see. You'd walk out and you've got this whole state forest, and here a mile is about from here to about here is about 1 mile. So this is several square miles. There we go. Yeah, this is like 2 miles across and 2.5 to 3 miles north to south. So there's about that's about 5 or 6 square mile state forest here, including 2 ponds, a Harvard pond and a Rickville pond. That'd be very nice. And so to spend $18,000 for 2 acres of your own property to live on there, even though it's $9,000 an acre and not $5,000 or $4,000 an acre that you might find elsewhere, it's effectively as if you have many more acres. You've got 6 square miles of natural forest that's going to remain undeveloped. So that'd be very nice as an alternative, an opportunity to have 2 acres of your own to do what you want with out in the country. Now there's several other little opportunities that I found like that, and I'm going to show you one of them in Warwick as we go north. So we're zooming out, and if you go above this, you go north to Athol through Orange, or maybe I should zoom this in. As you go north from that state forest, you hit Athol and Route 2 going west, and Orange. There are about 5 miles between Orange and Athol, and then about another 4 or 5 miles north of Orange. Or you've got this town of Warwick, which doesn't even show up unless you zoom in even closer. Here it starts to show you Warwick. very small little just intersection of, it's basically like an intersection of two streets, and that's about it. The town center, must be very quaint. I've never been there that I know of. Nobody's ever been there. Here's the center of town. That's it, like 4 streets. Let's look at the satellite view of it. There you go. Good. When you zoom in this far, you sometimes get a good lighting on the satellite. So that's their center of town of Warwick, downtown Warwick, Massachusetts. That's it. There's like 10 houses there. And let's look at the bird's eye. Oh, if I label, we'll give you the streets. Now here's Hotel Road. That's probably the hotel. That's it. That's probably the center of town's one hotel. There might be a convenience store, and it's all farms. Now let's take a look at the bird's eye view and see how that looks. There, that's better lighting again. That's the center of town. This is like the village green has probably what is a hotel on it. Oh, here's a church down here. Look at that. Let's zoom this if we can. That's it. That's as much as we can zoom. There's a nice little old church, very just quaint, totally New England. There you go, New England Village, center green, but it's got probably a hotel or that town hall. That could be the town hall. Let's see if we can spin this around. Let's see if we can spin this around and view it from other angles. Yeah, now we're seeing we're looking eastward. Instead of we're looking north, we're looking eastward now. So we were just looking this direction, and now we've spun it, so we're looking east here. And this is south, and this is west. Let's see if we can spin it again. We're looking south now. Okay, so we're looking the opposite direction of where we originally were. Originally, this was our first view, was looking at this. We were looking at this building here from the south, looking north at this, and now we're going to look from the back of this building. Let's see how it looks. Now we're looking at the back of the building. We're looking south, so we can actually zoom in and see the backs of all these buildings. See these buildings from all 4 sides. Look at this great big, I don't know what it is, a farm or a hotel, but it's certainly nice, big, solid-looking thing. This looks like an old barn here. The roof is older, and yeah, you've got barns out in this area. Barns, not just garages. You've got actual natural, honest to goodness barns you've got here, and nice old trees. And let's look at the church. Open the doors and see all the people. Here's the church, and here's the steeple. Let's see if we can zoom out a little. There we can. That's all we can do is zoom out once and zoom out in again. So I'm going to send it back to north. Viewing north. There we go. This is Warwick, Massachusetts. Let's take a look at the road, at the map of it. We're about the same scale now. Zoom out. Let's view area map. There we are, seen from farther above. Zooming out some more. Now the lighting starts to get bad, and now it's hard to. Now the forests are all like dark looking. And I'm going to put the labels on so I know what I'm looking. There's the center of town of Warwick, and we were looking at a property up here. Okay, there's Camp Warwick. Where is it? Where is the property? There it is, the way down. It's okay, so the property we were looking at was a little under 4 acres. That's south of the center of town of Warwick. Down here, it's about 2 miles, or 2.5, 3 miles south of that small center of Warwick, and it's about 5 miles north of the town of Orange. Zoom out a little bit. There, maps. At least maps, you don't have the lighting problem. So there, you got about 4 or 5 miles north of Orange is this small site. It's about 3 2/3 acres up here. So let's zoom into this, and let's give it the satellite view with some labels. All right, so we're on this little road. Now this road, according to descriptions of this property, doesn't have electricity. It's described as off-grid. So you buy this 4-acre plot of land here. It says off-grid. You don't have electricity, and you probably don't have sewage, plumbing, all that stuff. But it's sold. People can come here for camping. You buy 4 acres here, and it turns out also that this land here is a lot of it owned by the Fisheries and Wildlife, Massachusetts Fisheries and Wildlife Department, so it's basically state-owned natural property too. So, that being the case, you could buy the 4 acres, which are selling for, let's see what it says about it, selling for $25,000, and it's 3 2/3 acres. So for $25,000, you get about 4 square miles. No, 4 square acres. That's a very different. 4 square acres, so about 2 acres by 2 acres, bordering on this state natural property that's not likely to be developed. So you've got an extra certain number of acres right on that you're parked on that you can use most of the time. I'm sure there's nobody from the state at all anywhere near this property. It's just left out there to be on its own. They would only come generally if there was some call that somebody was cutting down lumber or something, or hunting illegally or something. But they didn't even care. The State Fisheries and Wildlife Department, they're all about hunting. That's how come they got created in the first place. It was like the Department of Hunting and Fishing. So if you bought this for $25,000, 4 square acres, 4 acres, then you'd be living on this. It would be effectively as if you had quite a number of more acres, because it's not like you got neighbors that are doing all kinds of noisy things and driving their cars. It's just a nature land there. So there you go. So that's a thought I've had. So the question is, 4 acres at $25,000, a little less than 4 acres, is approximately, it's a little bit more than $6,000. So that's about $6,000 an acre. I'm going to show you, well, it's getting a little light, but yeah, I'm going to show you the map instead. You got about $6,000 an acre on this plot here, that's 4 acres. Or you could go down to this state forest here, where you're only able to purchase 2 acres, and they cost $9,000 each, but the total cost is still less than the other one, and you're bordering on all this natural land. So you get yourself a little mobile home, you buy the land, you own it, you park the thing. It's not anybody's thing to bother you about it for the most part. And up here, on this one that's off the grid, so they presume that anybody there might have a camper and they'd have a portable toilet and all. And you can go out here and set up your little shack and create your composting toilet, presuming that you do it smart. So you really do it so it really breaks down all the toxic matter within the sewage. You could really live out here and not a problem. The worst thing is that I'm aware of with toilets is the E. coli bacteria. That's a human bacteria that gets to be bad if it gets into the water stream and starts poisoning the water stream. But if you can really compost it in a way that neutralizes it by there's certain plants that are supposed to break down the sewage and take care of that. I just have to research that more, but that would be the goal, is you could do that. And you wouldn't need the city sewage, and if you could set up, you've got 4 acres, you could set up a couple wind generators and some solar panels there on your own property, not like being a renter and your landlord's going to come and say, "What's this fucking solar? What are you doing trying to put up a wind generator on my property? I've given you 30 days. This is it. Take that down, or I'm going to call the police and have you evicted." That's what would happen ordinarily if you were in Boston and trying to set up solar panels or a wind generator on property there where you're just a renter. But you buy 4 acres and you own it, and it's up here off the grid. Let's take a look at the way they describe this now this has been listed for 271 days since August, and nobody's bought it since August. The taxes are only a little less than $500 a year, which is pretty low for most properties. But that's because the specifics about this. Here it says electric. The property features electric, none. Land type is residential, so it is zoned for single-family residence. That means it's not like some of these natural land properties. They say non-buildable. So you try to put up a little house or a little shack, and somebody's going to come by and say, this isn't zoned for that. You have to take that down right now. You can't do that, even though you own the land. But here, it's zoned for that. Technically, aside from whatever other legal hurdles they have, it is technically allowable to build something, and it's recognized that there's no electric service. Buyer responsible for verifying all info, no electric, and it's assessed at $30,000. So this is selling a little bit less, below the about 20% less than the assessed value for what that is. And the description of it is: dreaming of a private spot in the woods? This parcel is off the beaten path and off of the grid. 3.687 surveyed acres of wooded land on Blabbity-Blah Street on Warwick provides a peaceful place for camping, hiking, and hunting. Or a lot to build a home, pitch a tent, cut fireworks. So if you buy this and you go out and you pitch your tent, and anybody comes by and says, hey, what you doing here, buddy? You say, look, here's a copy of the deed. I bought this place. I can pitch my tent here if I like. And say, okay, see you later. If you need anything, come over. We're down the street. Okay, nice to meet you. Thanks. Okay, you too. And that's what you can go and pitch your tent if you spend a week there, or 2 weeks, or a month, or 3 months. If you spend 3 months in a little tent that you pitched, even if you spent that time in the tent or camper or camping vehicle, or parked your car there and just pitched a tent out of the back of your camping car, and then while you were there started to put up a shack, construct a little shack like Thoreau at Walden. Here, it's not like these other properties that say non-buildable. So you start to put up your shack, and somebody comes by from the city town hall and says, you're not allowed to do that. This isn't zoned for that. Here, you can do that. It's zoned for residential. You can you start putting up your shack, and I'm sure they'll give you certain legal aid. Oh, you need a permit for this and a permit for that, and you need to check with the town assessor for this and that. Town-maintained dirt road only has 2 other homes. An excellent location to live or play off the electric grid. So it's recognized that there's no electricity. You're not to be expected any electricity. But if you go there and set up a wind generator to give yourself electricity in your own little cabin or shack or tent, who's going to complain? If you go out and you set up your solar panels to collect electricity, that's your business. So for $25,000, for Christ's sake, the cost of these 4 acres is less than I've spent in 2.5 years of rent of a room that's 400 square feet. I've spent more on the room I'm sitting in right now than it would cost to own these 4 acres. So the likelihood that I plan to buy this myself is looking pretty good at this point. And then if you borrow money over here, it'll show you mortgage payment calculator at 5% interest over 30 years with a down payment of 20%. Your estimated monthly payment will be $100. So $100 a month, less than you probably pay for your cable bill or your electric bill. That you could, if you didn't have $25,000 to just pay it in cash, you could pay $100 a month and own this property. Even if you only came out here for a couple of weeks a year just to camp and try to set up your wind generator and your solar panels, you could do it. It'd be worth it. $100 a month just to pay the mortgage off. Taxes are $500 a month, which is 1/4 what they are in most places of single houses like this. So I'm going to, while we're at it, I'm going to go back and take a look at the comparison of the prices. Here we have zoom out. Let's zoom out. So up here we were in Warwick, and this was 4 acres for $25,000. Down here at the Harvard Forest was another 2-acre package for $18,000. So that goes up from being $6,000 an acre here to being $9,000 an acre here, but it's bordering the state forest. And down over here in Barre, where my camp was, is the other place that I'm considering seriously. Right out about here. Right in here. Yes, up this road here, there's a property that's a little less than 7 acres for $32,000. So the price at that point becomes about under $5,000 an acre. So if you buy these 7 acres here in Barre, it's under $5,000 an acre. If you go up to the one we were just looking at in Warwick, way up north here, which isn't that far north, it's maybe 20 miles north of Barre, it goes from being $5,000 to $7,000, and then you go back down here to the state forest, and you got 2 acres averaging, actually about $8,000. It's because they were a little more than 2 acres for $18,000. So it actually is only about $8,000 an acre. So you're ranging from spending $5,000 to $8,000 an acre, but you've got state forest land to be bordering, and that makes it seem more economical as far as you're getting more acreage than you're technically getting. You're effectively getting a lot more acreage than you're technically personally owning yourself. So, here's a good possibility. And this was a good opportunity to check out the way what you can use these maps to show. So let's try zooming in on that place. And zoom in. Here we go. The where was it? Over Old Dana Road. It was out here somewhere, but right here. Zoom in. Yeah. Yes, Blair. Right around this area. And if we satellite view, then we can put labels on it so we can see where the streets are. And I believe that land was right in about here, where there's not great density here. It's just a lot of wooded area. And then if you show the bird's eye view, it even shows it much more clearly. Just a lot of woods area. Oh, I know what the other thing I was going to say is. I read this description of this off-grid place, and it says it provides a peaceful place for camping, hiking, hunting, or a lot to build a home, pitch a tent. Do you find it a little bit of an oxymoron, a little bit ridiculous when they say it's a peaceful place for hunting? A peaceful place for hunting. Doesn't seem to coordinate in my mind with the word peaceful and the word hunting. How can you jam them together in the same sentence? It's peaceful, so let's go kill some things that are trying to live here. That just doesn't make sense to me. And sometimes half my motivation when I read these descriptions of these nice little properties that show here's a nice natural area that moose and deer live here, and then they advertise this great place to set up your hunting. Oh, and they say it's here's like 4 acres or 10 acres. So a number of them are like 10-acre lot. It's non-buildable. It's zoned, so it's conservation land. You're not allowed to put up a permanent residence here because that would be destructive to the environment, to the peaceful nature of this property. But come out here and kill the animals, with your gun, and kill any animals that happen to be crossing over your legal boundaries, as if the animals are supposed to know that, oh, you walk past this tree and suddenly you're on so-and-so's property, and so-and-so's got a gun and he's going to kill you, and he doesn't feel remorse about that at all. So it's okay for them to sell these properties to people who are going to come up with just the purpose of destroying the wildlife that lives there. But God forbid somebody should try to set up a little shack to actually live peacefully That's a little bit weird. So, this got a little bit long, but I hope you had a little fun watching how we view the Google satellites and the bird's eye view and the label, which gives the hybrid view of the satellites with the roadmap labels. The end.